I sort of understand Baroness Brinton's points, and I take them seriously, because anybody who thinks any proposed legislation will discriminate against one group deserves to be heard and deserves to have those questions explored. But I think what's at the core of this is the collection of data. We are an immensely data-rich society at the moment. And sitting here throughout the debates this evening, there have been so many times when the argument that's been put forward has depended on the collection of data. And whichever public service you look at, whether it be education, health, the criminal law, whatever it is, much of the progress that we've made over previous decades has been because we have had the ability to collect data. And I'm a woman, and I think that my sex has made many advances over the last decades because people arguing for legislation that's protected women and protected men and protected people with disabilities and protected people who are transgender have only been able to make the case because they've been able to collect the data. Unless you've got the data, you're arguing vaguely about some impression about something that might happen. So I am deeply wedded to the idea of collecting data in the formation of public policy and in the advancement of political ideas. So I think that's defensible, but I don't take for granted the fact that we don't give something up in the collection of that data. I'll be honest, I'm a trustee in a number of charities, which I think everybody in this chamber is. And every year when I get asked to fill in the data declaration, I see another bit of data there. And there's sometimes I think, why do they want to know that about me? And the one I'm saying that at the moment is sexuality. I sit there, I think I tick the box that says heterosexual. I thought, what's that got to do with me being a trustee on this particular board? But I sign it because I think that on the whole, that declaration of bits of information about ourselves can be put to the common public good. And if we were to look at charities, without declaring that information, how do we ever get to make the argument that women aren't represented on charities, that people who are black, or ethnic minorities aren't represented on charities, people from the gay community aren't represented on charities? So I think whether we like it or not, and I accept that it's difficult to come to terms with sometimes, it is the protection and the rights and freedoms of individuals. But I would never say that we don't pay a price for the collection of this data, and I would never say that we mustn't continuously and constantly make sure that the data we're asking to be collected is in the public policy interest. And that's why I come to this amendment, and that's why I very much support the arguments that have been made. Simply, what the amendment asks is that we collect two bits of data, amongst other. One is the sex at birth, and two is any acquired gender that has been acquired throughout the lifetime of a person. And without that, I don't know how we go on to develop public policy, both in the pursuit of those who have committed crime and in the public duty to protect those who have been victims of crime. Unless we've got the data about how many of which groups there are, I think they get ignored. And I've sat through a very, very interesting and long debate today, and from my noble friend from the front bench said that one of the most important things about this bill before the House is that it is a bill about protecting women and girls. I don't know how you do that unless you actually collect the data. So I think that the idea of collection of the data, we've heard about county lines, we've heard about knife crimes. Unless we collect the data to know that many of the people who are persuaded and drawn into committing those crimes are young men, we can't develop a suite of policies that actually supports them. And so when we collect data about sex, I think it's entirely proper to ask about acquired gender as well. And we mustn't conflate the two. And I think the problem at the moment is different police forces are collecting data about sex at birth and gender acquired at some other point, and they're conflating the two, and we've not got that sequencing of data and information across the police forces in this country that can enable us to make public policy. Now, that's what this amendment is asking. It wants to disaggregate those, as the mover of the amendment said. It wants to begin to collect the data so that public policy can follow it. But it doesn't ignore the fact that this is sensitive and must be done in a confidential and sensitive way with a clear purpose of public policy. And it's not beyond the wit of our society to collect that data in a way that does exactly that. The amendment doesn't say how it will be collected, and it's easy to make an argument that it will be about outing yourself or declaring it publicly. It need not be, because that isn't required. I'll go back to the purpose of this amendment is the collection of accurate data in the proper pursuit of public policy and the protection of individuals. And I very much hope that the Minister will give it serious consideration and let